We're celebrating the 10th anniversary of the ABN app launch on iOS and Android platforms. Your efforts have helped us spread the message of Jesus worldwide. Let us join together in praising God for this incredible journey of international outreach. Stay tuned for more details about our upcoming big event, where we will reflect on our impact and express our gratitude to our team and partners. Please continue to pray and support ABN as we strive to fulfill our mission globally, bringing salvation to the unreached nations.
Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Today our program is about Christian persecution in Europe. We'll talk about the latest reports about the OIDAC Europe, a group that studies discriminations against Christians in Europe. And my name is Afnan, and we have also with us today Sister Divine and Sister Jadadia.
Hello, my name is Jedediah.
And also today we're happy.
Hello, my name is Divine.
Hello, everyone. And today we're happy to have our special guest, Miss Eileen Ellinger, who would like to remind our viewers that Miss Eileen Ellinger is author of the book Civilization, Reckoning, Understanding the Threat and Reclaiming the Future. We encourage everyone to learn more about this important issue. Understanding the challenges we face today is very important. You can find her book now on Amazon. Miss Eileen, thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you very much, Sister Afnan, and for the kind introduction as well. Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And today, many anti-Christians attacks in Europe happen for different reasons. Some are linked to extreme secular ideas. Some are connected to strong anti-religious feelings. Others might be connected to religious extremism or radical beliefs. Reports show that we can see some of them linked to extreme scholar, like we see many of them, and some are connected to a strong anti-religious feelings. Others might be connected to religious extremism or radical beliefs. Reports show that people who commit those attacks might belong to political, ideological, or religious groups that hold negative views about Christians. This can include excuse me? I thought that Jadadia wanted to say something.
No,
Those attacks, might belong to political, ideological, or religious groups that
Guys, do
hold.
you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Continue, Afnan.
Okay, that hold negative views about Christians. This can include extreme secular groups or radical individuals from different religious backgrounds. They are all often supportive of each other's, mostly and notably the extremist Islamic groups also.
Exactly. And don't ever say Christianity is majority in Europe, so everything is going to be okay. Look what happened in Lebanon. Christians were once the clear majority, but after years of persecution and oppression, everything changed. Within just few decades, many were forced to flee their homeland to escape violence and discrimination. families scattered across the world, not because they wanted a new life abroad, but because they had no choice. Their story is a painful reminder of how quickly thriving Christian community can be pushed into becoming a minority. And today, the sword of Islam is no longer wielded only through force, but through the political left, which enables its expansion and allows its hostile tactic against Christian to flourish. Go ahead, Divine.
I think Divine, she might be having a problem with her internet. Divine?
Divine, are you
Oops.
with us?
No, it was like muted. Do you hear me now?
Yes,
Yeah.
go ahead.
All right. So yeah, I said like the intolerance and discrimination against Christians in Europe that was stated in the OIDAC. Based on what we learned from the report, I believe that this intolerance by non-Christian. Let me just like say what is this term stands for. It's actually Observatory on Intolerance and Discriminations Against Christians in Europe. And yeah, I believe that this intolerance by non-Christians was a result of Christian tolerance and values, like turning the right cheek. Yeah, I just want to handle it from like a religion perspective, or like as a religious person or as Christian. So yeah, I think like the main problem here that we misinterpret the Bible when it says like turn the right cheek, and treating your enemies with love and mercy, equality between the foreigners in your land with a native born, and love them as yourself, as the Holy Book quotes in Leviticus 19:33 and 34. These are like, in my opinion, it's great teachings, but for normal people, for like people who don't like misuse this against us, who are just want to live with us in peace, not the people who are coming with bad like or devilish knowledge, as like I say it, people who do not want to assimilate with us. They want to come and dominate us. So it's like it has to be like a different way of like treating them. I don't like say don't love them or don't like treat them with equality, but I say my opinion is like just to be careful with them, because they're trying also to replace our real God with their like false God, try to impose and enforce their evil teaching on us, because their God doesn't accept any other teachings but his own. And even the Bible warned us from this evil people. This for people who are like using the Bible to just turn the blind eyes on these people who are coming to dominate us and to impose their Sharia on us. So we have just to be careful with it, because like in 2 John chapter 1, I will go to the Bible also to show these people that they're using the Bible wrong. In John, like 2 John chapter 1, 9 to 10, as it quotes, anyone who runs ahead and does not continue in the teaching of Christ does not have God. Whoever continue in the teaching has both the Father and the Son. If anyone comes to you and does not bring this teaching, do not take them into your house or welcome them. Anyone who welcomes them shares in their wicked work.
Divine, are you with us?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, you need to you have a
So
question, right?
yeah, but first, like, I want to just like clarify something. When I say, like, when I said like this verse, I didn't mean not to accept people who are coming here. It means if they come here to live peacefully with us, if they come here to abide by our rules and laws, they're welcome to come here. But you can like go to someone's house and you're running away from your own house, from your own country, and coming here asking for shelter, for money, for food, for education, and I provide you with all this stuff, and then you come and tell me, oh, I have to take this house, or you pay me to stay with me. I didn't have you to pay for staying with me, and it's my house. And you come to me and you want to take it. You want to take it from me, take over. And also, you don't like that I have like my parents, maybe my parents' picture on the wall, and you say, oh, you hurting my feeling. You have to take this down. This is invasion. This is not like assimilation. It's a domination that the Islam goes to the West and try to do to invade their countries. Not just invasion with the sword as they used to do, but they invade like our youth, like their brain, the way they think, the way they live, everything. They want to impose the Sharia, and they oppose the teaching of our Lord, the teaching that can like make us live in peace together, accept everyone else. And we accepted them based on like Christian teaching, based on Christianity and Judaism, that these countries were built on. It was built on these values. So now they want to like use these values against us. These values allowed us to accept them the way they are, to come here to our countries and live peacefully, live a good life that they don't live in their countries, they don't have, they miss it in their countries. And now they want to come here and change these values that made us accept them. So yeah, my question to Eileen, I know like it's about religion, but like my question is, do you think like the Christian or Judaism values matches the values for Islam?
No,
Of course.
not at all. And what you're speaking about there, tolerance, the people conflate doctrine and people all the time, and this is a huge mistake. One can be tolerant of other people and should be tolerant of other people as much as possible. You know, we're all a little different and we need to get along. And when everyone plays nicely in the sandbox, this is a lovely thing. But there is one group that does not play nice in the sandbox. And the reason for that is the ideology. So when you notice in the West, the advances that are made inconvenience the host country, not the Islamic country. Now, when you actually look up the word invade in the dictionary, it says to enter a country with an intent to control or subdue it, right? This is political, and this is exactly what Islam does. So when people say that Islam is invading the West, that is 100% accurate. You can go to the dictionary and read it. The problem is that most people don't understand that aspect of Islam, and they simply treat Islam as being people when it's not. It's an ideology. So when, for instance, if you're at work or at school, we're talking about Europe here, and in Europe, my goodness, they are suffering so badly in the schools. And demands are made for prayer rooms or time for prayer or halal food. These are all things that inconvenience the host country. They're not asking for example, that the women be locked in their houses. They're not asking for this. Now, all of this can be found in the doctrine. But the part, I mean, just go to Afghanistan, there you are. The women can't even walk in the street. They can't go anywhere without a mahram. They're not allowed to hold employment unless their husband agrees to this. They're not asking for that when they get to Germany. They're not asking for things that will inconvenience them. They're asking for things that will advance Islam and inconvenience the host country. So they cherry pick. Now, why in the world should any non-Islamic country be agreeing to any of this? Why don't they say, well, why don't you ask us for this? Why don't you ask us for that? Why are you only inconveniencing us? They're all part of your religion, so you say, but you think this is important and that isn't important. Why should any of this affect how everyone else is living their lives? Because that's what it does. Like in the UK right now, they're not wanting to have dogs in the parks. They're not wanting to have pubs. They're not wanting to have, ham sandwiches on the lunch board. All of these things that inconvenience the host country and don't inconvenience Islam at all. Well, it's not fair. So tolerance should not include being tolerant of an ideology at all. What does that have to do with being tolerant towards other people? So if someone has, a voice you don't like, or they wear clothes you don't like, or whatever, none of this matters as long as we all get along as well as we can. But Islam refuses to get along. Islam always demands that the other people change to accommodate it. And that is not tolerance, that is governance. And that is, of course, the purpose of Islam, is to establish governance.
I want to also to add something. The thing happened a couple of days ago. There was a Muslim activist called Nardeen Kiswani in New York City, and she said, and she posted this on X. She said, finally, New York City is coming to Islam. Dogs definitely have a place in society, just not as indoor pets. They want to stop us from having our indoor pets. Like we have said all along, they are unclean, she said. So the Congressman Randy Fine respond to her saying, if they force us to choose, the choice between dogs and Muslims is not a difficult one. So, but what actually turned my stomach and make me very angry, Gavin Newsom, he said, resign now, you racist slob. Can you imagine that you cannot even protect your own dogs and keep your own dogs, because they not, as we said, they are not coming here to be in the melting pot with us. They're coming here to control us, to even stop us from having our own pets inside our home.
Well, the thing is that people are not helpless. We're not helpless at all. And there are so many people who make the mistake of, one, conflating people and doctrine. They want to be nice to people, and in doing so, they accept a doctrine that is counter to their own laws, the universal human rights. They should not be doing that. That's one thing, okay? They don't need to accept all of this just to be polite. That is foolish. The other thing is that they have the power of the vote. And there are so many people who are uninformed both about Islam and their own politicians. Now, I know a number of people, practically, frankly, everyone, identifies themselves with a party. They vote for a party. They say, well, I've been Labor all my life, or I've been NDP all of my life, or I've been whatever, the European ones. I've been this all my life. Our family has always. This is incredibly stupid, because there are all sorts of people in politics who, one, will act as a rhino. They will go into someone else's party, and many of them may do this to try and influence it, to change it. And over time, the party that you had 10 years ago is not the same at all as the party you have now. That's certainly been the case in Canada. These parties have evolved. They are nothing like they were. So people should take a fresh eye every single time. If you are so fortunate to have such a gift as a vote, use it wisely, or you may not get to use it at all. Look for people who care about their citizens more than they care about their career, who are listening to their citizens, who are well informed about Islam and care about their country. So, you know, when you hear someone like oh darn, what's his name, the California fellow again, you were just mentioning him, Randy Fine, for example. Newsom. Yeah, Randy Fine, in, like, you know, I'm not American, is wonderful, frankly. And of course he said, well, if someone's going to tell me I can't have my dog, well, I don't want that person. That's only reasonable. My goodness, if someone came to my house and told me I couldn't have my husband, you know what I would do with that person? They would just have to take a hike. So for Gavin Newsom to come out now and say that is racist, well, he's very politically compromised. When you look at his involvement with the Council of American Islamic Relations, you know, they brag about in their annual reports, they brag about just how cooperative Mr. Newsom is. And of course, that's political ploy, looking for support, vote bank politics. And that is certainly not working for the good of the people. And so people need to pay attention to how they are voting. Get informed. Don't be lazy.
Exactly. Afnan, do you want to comment on Divine's question?
Actually, we see like what they're doing, it has nothing to do with the Western value. Like they might be pretending like they're peaceful, but technically what they believe in has nothing to do with what's like Western countries believe. And we can see like many hadiths, many verses in Quran like tell us everything. For example, there's some like those people who they are like have like trying to support Muslims. They say no, Muslims are good people, Muslims are nice people. Like there is some Muslims are nice, but those technically some of them they might be pretending they're nice and using taqiyya, and others they're ignorant in their faith technically. So there's two kinds of those Muslims. But at the same time, they try always to attack Christianity, say like Christians are racist, Christians are bad. While when we go to the Bible, anything from the like that doesn't make sense. For example, when we go to the Bible, Matthew, he says, but I say to you, love your enemies, bless those who curse you, do good to those who hate you, pray for those who hurt you and persecute you. So we see Jesus also told us to love everyone, not only the people who follow our faith, or like in the, but when we go to Islam, it's the opposite. And we see also in the Bible, he says whoever doesn't love doesn't know God, because God is love. And John the 1:4-8, and we see also the Bible says, if you love those who loves you, what reward is that? Even sinners love those who love them. Luke 6:32. And here we can see the difference between Islam and Christianity. For example, when we go to the Islam, you must love only Muslims. Like if you love someone who is not Muslim with your heart, you are portraying Islam, you're doing a sin. We see some people say that Islam is different on this point, and they say that they try to say like things, but when we go to, for example, the hadith, where the Prophet Muhammad was asked about the best faith, what he said, to love for the sake of God and hate for the sake of God. So part of Islam, part of the faith in Islam is hate. So if someone doesn't agree with the God of Islam and you are friendly to him or nice to him, that's considered a sin. And we can see also there is a verse in Surah Al-Mujadila 58:22, that says, "You will not find people who believe in God and the last day loving those who oppose God and his messenger, even if they are their fathers, sons, brothers, or relatives." So in Islam, me or you as a Christian or atheist or whoever, like agnostic or whoever, like I don't know what's your religion, like any other religion, it's not Islam. You don't deserve love from Muslims. They don't consider you someone like they are, like they like, or they shouldn't loves you, because that's what their faith telling them in Quran. While the Bible, the Christians that you call racist or you try to attack them, or they're trying to protect you, they're trying to protect your values, they're trying to protect the humanity, not like letting you in the hands of those who they are trying to deceive you. We can see also in the Bible, believers are told not to force their faith on others. The Bible says, "If anyone doesn't accept you or listen to your words, leave that house or town and shake the dust off your feet," in Matthew 10:14. But when we go to Islam, nope. For example, in Surah At-Tawbah 9:29, it says, "Fight those who do not believe in God or the last day, and who do not follow the religion of truth until they pay the tax jizya while they are humble." And actually in Arabic it says, while they are being humiliated, like humiliate them, take money from them, and keep forcing them and fighting them till when they believe in Allah of Islam. And they consider only their faith is the truth, and if you don't believe, they must fight you. It's true they are not fighting anyone now because they are weak, but when you will let them come in and come in and come in and come in and trying to brainwash you and brainwash other, here you will see the true face of Islam. And also there's another hadith says, "Whoever dies without fighting or without planning to fight dies with a part of hypocrisy." So that's the
It's
religion. That's
actually,
the
hold
religion.
on, the translation is wrong.
What is it?
It's supposed to say, "Whoever does not invade," they have to invade. Invading is going to the people to their home country and invade them and fight with them. But when they say
Yeah.
fight, they're gonna, like Muslim will say, it means like when someone come to fight us. No, you go to them. You have to go to them because you have to invade them. Whoever like did not invade
By
or
the way,
like talk to
mhm.
himself about invading or think about invading, they died on like they're a hypocrite.
Well,
Divine.
I just wanted to add one little thing about what you were saying there, Afnan. You were saying, you were quoting the Bible and saying it in Matthew, it says, "If you love those who love you, what reward will you get?" Don't even tax collectors do that. Because once again, I want to mention that there's a difference between people and doctrine. And people go, "Oh, well, it says, I have to really care about the tax collector, even if I don't like the tax collector." In Islam, what Islam says, okay, Quran 33:36, "It is not for a believing man or believing woman, when Allah and his messenger have decided a matter, that they should have any choice about their affair. And whoever disobeys Allah and his messenger has certainly strayed into clear error." Now, this is Sharia, okay? The requirement that they abide by what has come from Allah and Muhammad. So it's an ideology. It is a system of governance. So there's a difference between saying, okay, well, that if you love people who love you, everyone does that. You want to love the tax collector. There's a difference between loving a human being who is a tax collector and loving an ideology, because that is what Muslims are required to follow, what they're required to proselytize. And that's where it's so easy to get mixed up on this, but it's just something that needs to be repeated over and over, is that Islam does this. And what is also very deceptive about Islam is that when you read the school texts, the Islamic school texts will tell children they have free will. Now, that is directly against what the foundational doctrine itself says. So many Muslims have been taught this. Now, I'm looking, of course, at English Islamic school textbooks because I can't read the Arabic. But that is what English Muslim children are taught. So it's no surprise, the harsher aspects of Islam, they're not told about. So it's no surprise that they think, oh, well, why aren't you being nice to me? And it's got nothing to do with them. It has to do with Islam and the fact that they are required to proselytize Islam, and Islam is an ideology, not a person.
Exactly.
Did that make sense?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Before I ask my question to Miss Elaine, I'd like to share like a few examples of the persecution of Christians in Europe.
Yeah.
It's important to keep in mind that the number in this report may not capture the full reality, as many incidents are believed to go unreported. Actually, the report itself says that these numbers are not the true, because they go under reporting all the time. They underreport everything. So arson attacks, like for arson attack on historic church in Saint Omer, France, in September 2nd, 2024, the historic church, the Church of Immaculate Conception, Saint Omer, was ravaged by arson in a blaze that nearly destroyed it. And of course, they said the Notre Dame Church fire was an accident even before the forensic arson investigation was completed. Murder of a 76-year-old monk in Spain, November 2024. The report notes that a monk was killed in Spain, one of the most extreme examples of anti-Christian violence in the period. Knife attack on a priest in Spain, 2023. Among the documented hate crimes, there was a stabbing attack on a priest that resulted in his death. Car ramming at a religious procession in Poland, 2023. A procession celebrating Corpus Christi was deliberately targeted by a vehicle, a violent assault on Christian during worship. Attempted murder of a convert to Christianity in the UK in 2023. A person who had converted to Christianity was reportedly a target of a hate motivated by murder attempt. Widespread vandalism and desecration of churches and cemeteries in 2023. In 2023 alone, 62% of all the reported anti-Christian incidents across Europe were acts of vandalism, graffitis, destruction of property, desecration of Christian sites, etc. Major surge in attacks in some countries. For example, Germany's 105% rise from 2022 to 2023. In Germany, recorded anti-Christian hate crimes jumped from 135 in 2022 to 277 in 2023, illustrating a rapid escalation. And of course, they said, we mentioned about Notre Dame. Anyway, many things shocked me in this report, especially the way they underreport the crimes committed by Muslims and avoid monitoring their names, so it's not clear that the suspects are Muslims. What was the significance in the report that surprised or shocked you? Many aspects of this report shocked me, especially what appears to be underreported of crimes committed by Muslims. But I wanna like also ask this in like, so you continue with that question. After we learned about the magnitude of persecution of Christians in Europe due to the large number of immigration affecting our Western civilization, which was founded on Judeo-Christianity beliefs, and now seeing attempt to undermine it, what is the solution to these problems so that we do not lose the West the same way we lost our land in the Middle East? What strategy should be used to reverse this destructive trend and rebuild what we have been lost?
So are you asking me?
Yeah, only go ahead.
Well, to the first part of the question, am I shocked by what you've just read? No, of course not, because I'm involved in this all of the time. It looks like I've gone a bit fuzzy there. I seem to be out of focus. But as to what can be done, the most important thing for people to do is to inform themselves, to learn what the doctrine actually says. You do. Very few people do. They constantly conflate people and doctrine. And of course, the politicians are the worst. Not all politicians, some of them, like you were just quoting Randy Fine. I know I was listening to Chip Roy last week and a few others who clearly understand that the doctrine is the driver, that is the problem. And of course, if you're born Muslim, which I could have been, I mean, Afnan was, and you're surrounded by this all your life, you don't know what's true, what isn't true. And this is for Muslims as well, unless they read it themselves, because like I just said, Muslim children in the West are quite definitely being groomed. They're being groomed. They're being taught Islam in a way that is not accurate. But so are non-Muslim children. So when there are problems, people are going, well, what's this all about? And they're wanting to talk about some extremist or something like that. They can't see what is right in front of them because of all these incredibly ignorant, because they are ignorant. It's from a lack of knowledge, things that they are being told by the media, by their politicians. We have to look at the facts. And what are the facts? Like in Germany right now, like you were just saying about the attacks there. Well, there was a report not long ago, and it showed that 98% of students who are migrants, they don't understand or speak German. What does that do to the society? Even without the violence, they're not bothering to learn. So many of them, they don't speak German at home. And language is a big thing in a country. If you get to the point that the majority of the population is not even speaking the language of the host, what does that do to the rest of the society? How do the firemen know where to go? How do the police know what you're saying? So then what happens, of course, is that you get more and more people, like's happening in the UK, who speak the language. So now you're having police who speak Arabic or Urdu instead of speaking English. Well, this is ridiculous. This is how you Islamize a country. That's one of the ways, one of the very many ways. But the aggression in the classrooms is phenomenal. This one particular report I was just speaking about recorded 35,570 violent school incidents just in 2024. This is an average of 97 daily. This is 743 of them involved knives. And the same thing is happening in the French suburbs. And, I did a show with a school teacher not that long ago, a German school teacher. He's Austrian, actually. And the things he told me, how the children are suffering. They're teased. They're harassed in the playground. They're called names as though being an Austrian child or being, a French child is derogatory, as if this is a slur. So they're called nasty names. You know, a blonde child, for example, will be harassed incredibly. They're trying to get them to convert to Islam, and this is happening in schoolrooms. This should not be happening in schoolrooms. And so, in addition to what's happening in society at large, with the attacks on the churches, people aren't really looking so much at what's happening in the schools. There was one school that apparently the parent phoned and was thinking about putting his daughter there, but if he did, she would have been the only Austrian child in the school, in the entire school. That's how much the demographics are changing so rapidly. And of course, that is part of the doctrine too. The doctrine demands that you can have 4 wives and each wife can produce as many children as possible, so that Muhammad can brag to the other prophets, in paradise and say, well, look at how many followers I had, simply as a matter of the demographics, the birth rate. But this, other populations don't do this. This is one deliberate way to try and take over a society. But you're asking me about what can be done. So number one is knowledge and separating doctrine from people. It is the doctrine we need to focus on. The West, honestly, is inviting in a doctrine that is absolutely antithetical to its constitutions, its charters, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and it's gaining power. And so all of those principles, as you said, the Judeo-Christian tradition, the Enlightenment, which resulted in those constitutions and charters, which are welcoming. They're very tolerant of everyone. There's, no other group that is doing what Islam is doing, because there is no other group that is seeking political control.
Perfect.
Yes, of
Divine, do you
course.
want to?
And I see also in the United Kingdom, it witnesses. Do you hear me, guys?
Yes, we do. Go ahead, Divine.
Yeah, I see, like, also, like, their ideology is working in the United Kingdom. It's working in Canada. So I'm gonna just like talk about United Kingdom, and to show like how a Christian witness is being squeezed in the name of public order. The Public Order Act of 1986 in the United Kingdom, it already contains stirring up hatred offenses covering race, religion, and sexual orientation. This laws targets threatening words or behavior intended to stir up hatred and can carry significant prison sentences. On paper, that sounds like a narrow focus on truly violent extremism. In practice, once biblical teaching on sexuality or other moral issues is viewed as hateful, like if you try to reach people on like sexuality or like the nature that we were on, they consider it or view it as hateful. The same machinery can easily be aimed at Christians who speak plainly. Like if you speak only like just about like Christian values, they will look at you as like it's a hateful speech. That's in United Kingdom. They say in 2024 and 2025, another major changes took effect. Parliament approved nationwide safe access zone of 150 meters around every abortion clinic in England and Wales. Within those zones, it is criminal offense to engage in activities seen as influencing or deterring someone from having an abortion. Guidance and commentary from both government and campaigners, for example, reports in national media confirm that even silent prayer, like if you pray silently, and gentle offers of conversation have been treated as prohibited conduct inside these zones. There are not theoretical concerns. A British Army veteran, Adam Smith Connor, Look at what happened to this guy. His name is Adam Smith Connor, was persecuted and convicted for silently praying near an abortion clinic in Bournemouth, and is now appealing his case. Others, such a pro-life volunteer, Livia Tosisi Bolt, have been found guilty of breaching buffer zones simply for standing with a sign offering to talk. The court accepted that their beliefs were sincere, yet still ruled their quiet presence unlawful. Like they have nothing against them, and they said like their presence is unlawful or illegal. Street preaching has also become a flashpoint. Christian preachers Sean O'Sullivan faced a charge of religiously aggravated international harassment. Other public preaching that included phrases like "We love the Jews," "We love the Jews" became like a crime. A jury eventually acquitted him, but only after a long trial and the threat of prison. The message is clear. Public proclamation of the gospel can now be dragged into court under hate crime categories, even when the breacher is ultimately cleared. In Canada and UK, I know like Elaine lived in Canada for like since she was a child. Yeah, it's also in Canada. The pattern is the same. So what do you think, Elaine, about this incident? Like now,
Well,
breaching the Bible or talking about like the Christian values is a hate crime in the West.
I lived in the UK as well, and of course I've lived a very long time. So the world that I am looking at now, the Western world, is entirely different from the one that I grew up in. Not at all. I mean, I can hardly believe that they are arresting preachers on the street for reading the Bible, and they are. I mean, I've seen that. The UK is particularly harsh, and this is insane. You know, there is no reason that there's nothing harmful that these preachers are saying. They're just preaching the Bible, okay? And anyway, so now what I wanted to say, though, you reminded me, are the gatekeepers. So whether it's politicians or it's publishing companies, the narrative is very much being portrayed as positive towards Islam. And out of fear, I believe, because we have things like Samuel Petty, where that man in France was beheaded for teaching a class where he showed a Muhammad cartoon. He asked children to leave if this was going to offend them. He shouldn't have to ask that. It's just a cartoon. The West has a long, long history of cartoons. I mean, we have the court jester, for heaven's sakes, and people have a sense of humor. Well, you're not allowed to have a sense of humor anymore. So all he shows is a picture, a piece of paper with ink on it, and a little girl who wasn't even in the classroom that day said that she was offended, and her father came and beheaded the man. This is ludicrous. No one should have to live with this kind of fear, but it has had an incredible effect on a society that used to be very open and tolerant. Like, there are maps you can look at, global maps of the world, that show the most tolerant societies and the least tolerant societies. We were the most tolerant societies, but what are we doing? We're screwing down the lid so that people can't talk anymore out of fear. This is making us less tolerant, because what we are actually adopting is the Islamic way of blasphemy, and we're destroying our society. If we don't have free speech, we don't have a free society. That's all there is to it. There's no critical thinking. You cannot advance if you do not have free speech. You absolutely have to have that. And And so what they're doing now, the politicians, wanting to show either how multicultural they are, or perhaps to prevent any errors that might offend the Islamic population, they're surrounding themselves with gatekeepers who are going to protect them from any kind of blowback. So publishing companies will have Muslim editorial heads, for example. When I published my first book, which was a primer, it was recommended that I go to 2 different publishers, and both of them had Muslim head of the geopolitical division. Now, if you're talking about having a Muslim gatekeeper regarding geopolitics in non-Islamic states, this is a security risk. And there's no doubt about it. And one of them had an overall Muslim head. So I think I may have mentioned this before. Consequently, propaganda flows freely. You can go to Amazon, for example, and you can type in the word Islam, and it will bring up 50 publications approximately of books for you to scan through and see what you're interested in. And the majority of them, by far the majority of them, is positive towards Islam. And it does not matter if it's true. It doesn't matter at all, because people are unable to critique it. They don't have the knowledge base. Many Muslims themselves don't have the knowledge base. They'll talk about what they think it should be, and they don't, or their own lived experience, which may be very good in the West, where they're allowed a lot of freedom. It's not like Afghanistan, and they'll go, well, Islam is wonderful, and people believe this, or believe there is some harmony in the scriptures when there is none. So it's a huge problem. And in Canada, we had the head of the Islamophobia rep, all right, Almira El-Gawabi, and you talk about statistics. So back about let me see, it was about I think I've got the numbers here somewhere. I do. Okay. So there was a motion introduced in Canada in 2017, and it was Motion 103. And it was calling on the government to only to address this systemic racism and religious discrimination, but it only mentioned Islamophobia. So one of its chief advocates was this Amira El-Gawabi, who then later became the Islamophobia rep for the Canadian government. So then she did a report. Well, there was a report that actually came from the police. And here's an example. Well, this is Canada, not Europe, but it's the same sort of thing. So the Canadian police had gathered statistics on the rise of hate crimes in Canada. And Amira El-Gawabi went on national television, on X, on all these public platforms to say that anti-Muslim hate crimes had risen by 71%. And everyone was horrified. But she did not mention that the attacks against Catholics had increased by 270%, and that Jews remained 18 times more likely to be targeted than Muslims. She left all that out. And here she is, a government representative. So how can you trust your government representatives when you're getting this kind of biased information from them? Totally inaccurate. It's just, yeah. So I've said enough about that. So yes, it's a problem in Canada as well, very much so.
Great. Go ahead, Afnan, ask your question.
Yes. So we see many things actually. The Bible even told us about that. Among them, that the Bible mentioned that in Matthew 5, 11, 12, it said, "Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven." And now I want to mention something. Some Christians now, they listen to they focus on this verse, and they keep in silence. They say, we're taking blessings, it's okay, we should keep silence. But they forget that the Bible mentioned and asked us to say what is good good and what's bad is bad. He didn't ask us to be silenced, or showing the people, or stop ourselves from showing the people the right thing, and the bad thing revealed it to the eyes to other people who need to see it. We see the Bible mention also, he say, have nothing to do with that. And I want to mention something. Actually, I have a question, and at the same time I want to mention something. uh, Jesus warned that in the last days his followers would face persecution, hatred, and betrayal. But when we think about all those things going on, how should Christians respond to those challenges in a way that shows the truth to the others? And looking at history, including times of Islamic expansion and other periods, how have Christians been treated in different regions and eras? So what I want to ask, like, when we see what happened in the past and see what's going on now, we see like some things are similar to what happened already in the past, and we saw already what happened in the past when the Christians kept being silenced and stopping themselves from speaking against the evil one. What happened? So what you can see common between the past and what's going on now, like between the time of Muhammad and our time now.
Are you talking to me?
We
All
are
of
here all talking to you. We all here talking to you.
Oh, goodness.
Go ahead.
Oh, goodness. Great. Okay. Well, some other people might want to answer some of these questions as well. But what are people doing the same as they've always done? And that is, Muhammad sent his own followers off to Christian countries so that they would be safe from the Meccans. And the Christians were very good to them. And, this has always been the way. And of course, that's happening again now. And we see it everywhere. And again, I say that people are simply uninformed. They're wanting to be good to people, but what they are really doing is being good to an ideology. That they don't differentiate. And for example, okay, we have these these interfaith groups, and I went to one. Well, I wanted to be sure I knew what I was talking about, because we hear about them, and I knew people who had been to them. I'd been told about them, but I felt I should really go to one. So of course I did. And we were supposed to, what happened was there was I don't know if any of you have ever been to any of these interfaith groups. But what happened at this one was it was a luncheon, and it was at a mosque. And it began by someone in English saying, and this is in Canada, so everyone understood English, in English saying the Lord's Prayer. And everyone smiled and nodded, and everyone felt like they had been blessed. Then the imam spoke in Arabic so that none of the interfaith people, except the Arab-speaking people, would have understood him. He didn't speak in English. He spoke in Arabic. And of course, he recited Al-Fatiha, which closes by denouncing Christians and Jews. And here he's got all these Christians in the room, and they all smile and nod and think they've been blessed. This is what I mean about deception. That whole room full of people had just been denounced, and they didn't know it. So then we had at the table, the front table, there were there was a kind of a chairperson, and then there were Muslims on one side, and there were Christians on the other side. I think it was all Christians. So they spoke about their personal experience, how much their faith meant to them. That doesn't tell us anything about doctrine at all. I fully believe that there are Muslims who find a true spirituality, but whether they're Sufis or whatever they are, but it is not coming from Muhammad, and it's not coming from the teachings of Islam. It is an innate belief since the beginning of time. People have sought a connection with a higher power. And of course, people want to do that. Islam honestly snuffs this out with ritual prayer, that they have to pray this certain way over and over and over. It is a form of brainwashing. But nevertheless, so they're speaking about their own personal experience. And for Muslims in the West, they're enjoying the best of both lifestyles, aren't they? They've got the wonderful Ummah community that supports them, but they've also got all of the freedom that comes from living in the West. So of course, they're talking about how wonderful it is. If you'd had a woman there from Afghanistan or Iran, I don't think they would have been giving the same wonderful stories about how great Islam is. But no, they had some Western Muslims there. So then you were supposed to break into groups and talk about whatever. So we were put into breakout rooms, and I was one of the online people. So I was in an electronic breakout room. Some people were present, and so they were at tables. So I was in a breakout room, an electronic one. And it had no sooner begun. There was only one Muslim in that group, and he left the group. Well, how are you going to have an interfaith conversation, ask questions, if the one and only Muslim leaves the group? So I came out of the break room electronically, contacted the host, and said, can you put me in another breakout room? Because there's no Muslim in this room. It's just Christians telling each other how wonderful this, interfaith meeting is, and there's no interfaith, there's only them. So he puts me in another group. The Muslim, the one and only Muslim, had already left that group. So it was all Christians talking about how wonderful this interfaith meeting was. So they're enjoying a lovely luncheon. What have they learned? Absolutely nothing. So and nobody talked about any hard subjects. Certainly nobody talked about Christians dying in Nigeria or Coptic Christian girls being kidnapped in Egypt, or Hindu girls being kidnapped in India. Nobody's talking about any of that. No, they're only talking about themselves. So when it was over, they sent feedback. So I filled it out, and I said, this accomplished absolutely nothing. There was no talk about these problems. What was the point of this lunch? And they had some man write back to me and tell me how wonderful Islam is, and how he'd lived in Indonesia somewhere, and he knew all about it. Okay, he did not. And it was just, they were determined that everyone was going to have a very wonderful time. And frankly, the church is very guilty of this everywhere. If people read my book, I'll just say the title of my book again. It's called, oh dear, what is it? Understanding the Threat, Reclaiming the Future. A civilizational reckoning, understanding the threat, reclaiming the future. Because I go through all aspects of Islam and its relationship, not only historically, but in current events, and what can be done to change that. But there is a section there in chapter 8 where I talk about dawah and how children are being approached in schools. And young Muslim children are given little handbooks, and they're told to go for the gold and just get them to convert. And they have a few talking points, very, very limited, that mostly trash other beliefs, so that when they get to the end of it, they could say, well, we've already proven that all of that is crazy. So Islam is the only thing that makes any sense. So you just need to say the Shahada. They don't say anything about killing apostates. They don't say anything about inequality before the law. They don't say any of the negative stuff. This is totally deceptive. Other beliefs don't do that. If you want to become a Jew, you need to study for years. I think you need to learn Hebrew. The same if you want to become a Christian. They don't use deception. The idea that a belief system, that what calls itself a religion, is so deceptive, people just don't want to believe it. It doesn't fit with their definition of religion. But that's because we call Islam a religion when it's a system of governance with religious aspects, and they're compulsory. So, because it's compulsory, frankly, I don't consider that religion at all. If you kill people for leaving, what have you done to the gene pool? Over 14 centuries of killing critical thinkers, calling them blasphemers, killing people who are humane and don't want to participate in jihad. What have you done to the gene pool for those people? And of course, they're always absorbing new populations. All right, so the genes are going to get mixed up again, but they're doing it through deceptive means here, and the church has been very complicit in that.
Exactly.
I think
Go ahead.
Jadada, I just want to say something that Eileen said here. Like they kill just to live, to find like money. It's like a hitman. A hitman. It's not a religion, as Eileen said. It's not a religion. God will not ask you to kill someone else. God was like mad when Cain killed his brother Abel. So he's not gonna ask you to kill another person, but it's like someone, a person, a human being that needed to have a job and he didn't have a job, so he decided to be a hitman and kill people for money, and he called it religion. Go ahead, Jadadai. Sorry for
but I don't blame the Muslims for what's happening in Europe or like in the West. You know why? Because the serpents do what serpents do. You cannot just change their nature. That's their nature. That's their religion. That's how they grow up on. So I don't blame the Muslims. I blame the West. I blame them entirely. The political left who welcomed them, who because they didn't come here by invasion. Like, they didn't invade our country. They came here by immigration. When they let them in, you know what I mean, they welcomed them in and say, come on, join us. So and their nature. Like, you're not I'm sure they're not that stupid that they are completely ignorant. They don't know what the Sharia is and what Islam is all about. That would be completely stupid and naive. But but the biggest mistake is they have raised a generation conditioned to despise Christianity. It's not just that. So they must despise Christianity. A generation so misled that they are willing to align themselves with any ideology that opposed it, even ideologies that would reject them at the moment they step out of line. Some of these movements openly condemn homosexuality, and in certain places have even supported brutal punishment against gay individuals. Yet, many young people ignore this reality, blinded by the hostility toward Christianity. It is a tragic irony in their anger toward their own spiritual heritage. They are willing to stand beside forces that would show them no tolerance, no protection, and no mercy. Like, I that's why this is happening now in Europe. That because uh, like, if you see how they blaming Christianity on everything, like even making demonizing Christianity in colleges, changing the history, telling like the Baltic Crusades were evil, and they attacked the Baltic pagans, the pagans in the north of Europe, and they were peaceful people. And they forgot to mention the Viking, how they invaded Christian villages, killing them, enslaving them, take them as slave, and sell them to Muslims who actually would pay lots of money for that. So they changed the narrative of history. They change everything just to create an enmity between Christianity and to hate Christianity completely. That's why the attacks of the churches in Europe, not just by Muslims, secular people, the left, non-religious people, they attacked churches. They decapitate statues. urinate inside the baptism, the container. I don't know what they call it in churches. They urinate inside it. They smear feces on the churches in Europe. Why? Why all that hate? Who created that? They did it. The left did it and made this the West a very fertile soil for the seed of Islam, and that's why we are. I don't know. Do you think we are far gone? I don't know. I need to know. You said election, but do you think this will?
No, that's
Yeah.
the politicians that have allowed all that money to go into the educational system. And it's the politicians who have allowed Islamic vetting of educational material. It's incredible. Like the policewoman I might have mentioned some time ago, in the UK. This young woman lost her job when it was discovered that she'd been making these tweets and saying terrible things about non-Muslims. Well, where was she taught all that? She was taught all that in Islamic schools that are approved by the politicians who are looking for votes and don't know a darn thing about Islam. Who ends up in trouble? Her, not the people who taught her, not the people who authorized that school to start with. Why are they authorizing schools that are teaching people to hate other people in the society? Because it's not just Christians, it's all non-Muslims. So that is what is taught in Islam, to hate all non-Muslims. It's hostility towards them. And yet the books that the kids are given, for example, I've got one here, this one, all right, How to Tell Others About Islam. This is used in the schools, and it ends by saying that there's no violence, that there's no connection with terrorism, which is ridiculous. Muhammad himself said, I've been made successful through terror for a distance of like 30 days or something, 30 days journey. And he knew full well he used terror all the time. It's not for a prophet to take captives until he has made a slaughter in the land. This is supposed to be a religious leader, and yet that is, they're allowing these schools. So it's no surprise at all that we've got all of these young people who think that, you know, Islam is wonderful. And of course that works 100% with the goal, which is to make temporary alliances. That you know, Islam has always made temporary alliances, you know, for the purpose of subterfuge or for gaining assistance, you know, in creating fitna, for example. So fitna, I'm sure most of your audience knows, this is to cause disruption in the land, you know, blocking the streets. All of this is creating fitna. But when they're out torching buildings and they're joining with left-wing groups, all right, or encouraging them, getting them to do even more than they would have otherwise, they go. This is all creating fitna, which contributes to the downfall of the host society. And anyway, so yeah, I blame the politicians very largely for what's happened to the youth. Yeah.
I want to share something because I don't want to leave this subject without mentioning it. Because those Christians who refuse to get involved in politics and saying we're Christian, we're not get involved in politics, that is against Christianity. You're fighting Christianity. You're standing on the side of the devil when you don't elect. So my daughter actually shared with me a story I never forgot. She said there was a man standing between two sides. One side stood Jesus, and the other stood the devil. The man looked at both and thought, I don't want to choose. I'll just stay in the middle. So he climbed up a fence, believing he had found the safest place of all. And he said, like, I will stay here, like natural, safe, untouched. But then the devil began to laugh. The man looked over and asked, why are you laughing? The devil replied, because the fence belonged to me too. That's what the Christians do. They want to stay on the fence, and the fence belonged to the devil. When you let the politicians, when you don't vote, you let the evil ones, the ones who belong to the devil, in control, and
You know,
that's how you lose your Christianity. Go ahead.
the ones that really anger me, they do, all right, is the self-righteous ones. You know, they're not doing it. They want to polish their own halo. And and it's very, very self-serving. So what happened a while back, I'm not going to be able to remember what stories I've told you and what stories I haven't, but there was okay, there was an organization in the town where I live that was bringing in refugees. And the well, what have I done here? Am I still there? Okay,
Yeah, you still with us.
okay, I'm still there. Oh,
Yes.
okay, I clicked something I shouldn't have. All right, so they were bringing in refugees. And one day I was speaking to one of the people I knew was involved, and I said, well, how's it going? Because I had a suspicion that they were also bringing in Muslim refugees, because we've seen, you know, in Christian organizations, bringing in Muslim refugees doesn't make any sense. How many Muslim organizations are bringing in Christian refugees, do you think? But it really doesn't, because the Christians are the ones who are being persecuted in Africa and the Middle East. Those are the ones you should be bringing in, for heaven's sakes. So anyhow, they had brought in a Christian family and a Muslim family. And I mean, we know that people have been coming in to, you know, because Sweden wasn't accepting any more Muslim refugees or asylum seekers. So people were saying they were something else. The same thing happened in the UK. They brought in a fellow who went and then blew up a church. Or I think they found the bomb in his trunk. And this kind of thing is happening a lot, okay? People are lying about their age. They're throwing away their documents before they get to the country so that you can't prove how old they are, et cetera, you know. But anyway, they had brought in the two families, and she said, you know, the Muslim family was really nice, but the Christian family was terrible. And I said, well, what happened with the Christian family? And she says, well, they got one of the people in our group to help them, and they lied to us, and they got her to drive them to the airport at 11 o'clock at night so that they could go to Sweden. They wanted to go to Sweden. Well, that makes absolutely no sense at all. And the Muslim family, they ended up going off to Toronto. So frankly, I'm not sure that they were bringing in any Christian families whatsoever, because when I learned about this happening, because she's so naive, she didn't realize, of course, that Sweden wasn't taking Muslim people. So a good way to get there would be to go to Canada first, and then get to Sweden from Canada. But anyway, so of course I have no proof, but I'm wondering, you know, what is going on here, because it seemed very, very suspicious. So I got hold of the head of it, and it was a combination of Catholic and Anglican diocese. The two dioceses together had one program. They put a Muslim in charge of it. I am not kidding. There was a Muslim in charge of taking the asylum seekers. He was the adjudicator, would decide who came in and who didn't. And so when I got hold of the head of the church that was over all of this, I said, why have you appointed a Muslim to do this? What do you think a Nigerian Christian feels? You know, thousands of them have been killed, and he's seeking refuge with a church in Canada, and he gets a Muslim instead of a Christian. And the man said to me, well, we're an equal opportunity employer. He had no compassion for the people actually coming to the country. It was all about them showing how egalitarian they are, how multicultural they are. I just was disgusted with him. Really, that's appalling.
The same thing you are talking about going on here in the US also. And I was arguing with someone about that, by the way, because they made me speak with one of the Muslims, and she tried to define even the horrible things in Islam and tried to put foundation and say, no, that's not what that mean really and stuff. And like, you know, like they prefer them even more than Christians themselves. And when I asked her, I said, like, you don't know that's how dangerous this religion is. Like, you're bringing those people, we're bringing dangerous. They're brainwashed the people here, putting them away from God, and they even like they're dangerous even for the believers here. Like, already so many attacks happen here, many stuffs. So what she said, but the Bible says, like, when foreigner residing among you in your land, do not mistreat the foreigner residing among you must be treated as your native born. Love them as yourself. But some Christians think about this verse and say, oh no, God asked us to honor even those foreigners. But he didn't ask you to bring dangerous to your people. The Bible also in Proverbs, he said, help those who are in dangers of dying. Stop those who are going the wrong way. If you say we didn't know about this, God sees your hearts and knows the truth. He will judge everyone fairly for what they do. So you bring in those people to brainwash people here, to harm other people here, and ignoring the other people who they are really in need for protection, and they are endangered, like, because of those people. That's the big sin. Like, technically, like, they're ignoring Nigerian Christians, ignoring like Arab Christians, ignoring like Coptic Christians, and bringing the ones who are harming those people. Like, you are like saying, like, to what is bad is good and what is good is bad. And like, I can't understand how they think, to be honest. Even that I'm from Muslim family, and my family, most of them, like, they are Muslims and everything, but I can't watch that and keep being silent. Like, I know the truth, so that's really hard.
Divine, do you have a question to ask?
Yeah, I want to just like take it from here from Afnan. Yeah, don't forget that God told us, I'm sending you out like sheep amongst wolves. So be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. So yeah, we love them. We have to love them as God told us to love everybody, love even the enemy, but not to be stupid with like a stupid love. It's different between a wise love and a stupid love. Stupid love is to turn your eyes blind under like evil agenda or ideology. You have to be aware of who you are letting into your house. You do not let people who come with different like values or and they want to like impose it on you, or like to enforce their ideology on you. This is will anger also God, because it's like against God. Everything they come with is against God. Abortion, homosexuality, like they worship the idols. Like for Muslims, I mean, like all the left, like the left leftists, or like the left party, they all like gather all the people who are against God, like people who encourage abortion is against God, against the Bible, against the God's teaching. People who encourage homosexuality, we see like Mamdani, he's even a Muslim, but Islam doesn't like prevent, like does not like say that homosexuality is wrong or is forbidding. That's why he was like gathering with them. He was celebrating this people, like the homosexuality people, and or I mean like gays and lesbians, and the colored flag that was in his like rally. So yeah, Islam is allowing all the bad things that the Bible is teaching. Like they violate everything the Bible was teaching us about. So they all in one basket. I consider the left party as like, or Democrat in general. Democrats are all in the left side. And I remember when Jesus said in Matthew 25 that the left side are all like the bad people. So they picked the side to be in. And it wasn't a coincidence. It's like meant for them. Yeah, and also be aware of false prophets which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. So we have to be aware. It's not just love and blind love. You have to look at the person that you deal with, the person that you let in to your country, because God said, what I see now is the world is upside down. And God warned us from this when He said, woe to those who say to the evil good and the good evil. So we have to be really wise when we handle these situations. We have to have a discernment, ask God for discernment to like know how to deal with these people when we let them in our country. Thank you.
Well, one of the terrible things is that they're allowing this to be used as a political football when it should be a bipartisan issue. Both parties should put the future of the country and the well-being of the country first and not make it political. So there was a hearing in the US. We're supposed to be talking about the EU, but there was a hearing in the EU or in the US on February 10th. And there were several, and I don't understand. I don't want to make this about left and right and have people reject my message because I'm speaking for one, not the other. So I'll just say that there were a group there that were well informed, and there was a group that was not. And the group that was not dealing with the issue on the table. Instead, they were attacking and saying, no, we should be talking about Epstein, or we should be talking about the far right, or we should be talking about anything except the subject of the hearing, which was Sharia. They were incredibly ill-informed. One point blank said, I know nothing about Sharia, so I looked online and it said peace, love, and so let's go with that. And what are you talking about? And totally dismissing these people in front of him who had spent decades studying the subject, were giving him their time. And he is incredibly rude. And it's like there were a couple of them like that. There was another one who read a prepared statement that was on an entirely different subject altogether, so that she didn't even have to hear anything of what was said. If you've got a politician like that, vote for somebody else, because this is such an important issue and they all need to protect their country. So they're not doing that. If they don't want to know what Islam is, then they're not doing that. And one of the things that they brought up was this letter on tolerance. And since we've been talking about tolerance, I'll mention that. And that is Thomas Jefferson. Now, Thomas Jefferson, it's well known, is one of the founders of the United States, founders of the Constitution. And his writing is sacrosanct. Like, people go, well, Jefferson was brilliant because, he had a Quran of his own. Well, as you know, the Quran is just a fraction of Islamic jurisprudence. You can't even practice the 5 pillars of Islam unless you know the Hadith and the Sirah. So all he had is the Quran. And he had made some notes. It wasn't the Constitution. It was just some notes he wrote on John Locke's letter on toleration. So it was about tolerance. And he just made some notes. And he said, neither pagan nor Mohammedan nor Jew ought to be excluded from the civil rights of the Commonwealth because of his religion. Wow, I'm sorry. Back, at that time, we're talking about civil rights in the 18th century. That meant owning property, access to courts, and personal liberty. Okay, you wouldn't be thrown in jail. It did not include the kind of benefits that they are getting now, because now they've got charitable status, they've got Islamic schools, they've got halal marketing, they've got foreign funding and government grants for building mosques. They've got all of these incredible things that are granted to them that don't have to be, because the state has the option who it who it grants charitable status. So they need to establish a threshold and say, look, if your teachings, if your foundational teachings are incompatible with the Constitution and universal human rights, then you don't get those benefits. And what Islam teaches, it's Quran 497. What it teaches is, if you feel oppressed in the land in that you cannot pursue the goal, which is Islamization, that is the goal of Islam, Islamic dominance. If you cannot do that, if you feel oppressed, you're supposed to go somewhere that you can do that. So hopefully, as in Israel in 1948, the Muslims who wanted to kill the Jews left Israel voluntarily. So the people who want Islamic dominance, who want Islamic governance, they're supposed to go somewhere. Find some place where you are going to be able to practice Islam in full and bring that country under dominion. And don't make it the United States, but don't make it Germany. Don't make it France. Don't make it Canada. Don't make it any of these Western countries through our own foolish, excessive tolerance of an ideology over people, because that's what it is. It's an ideology that is not only over people, it's over dogs. We're even supposed to be getting rid of our dogs. Let's get serious.
Exactly. But the thing is, I'm wondering, do the left understand that
No.
they actually weaken their Western civilization in this way? Because the strength of this civilization has always been rooted in its Christian foundation. The moral framework,
yeah,
the shared value of the spiritual identity that held the nation together. When you attack the foundation, you're fracture the unity. And once a civilization is spiritually divided, it becomes vulnerable, breaks its core beliefs, and you can penetrate it, undermine its faith, and you can destabilize it, remove its moral anchor, and you make it easier to dismantle. History shows that civilization rarely collapse from outside first. They collapse when their internal foundation is weakened. If a house is divided against itself,
that's right.
That house cannot stand. So, what do you like? Exactly. Go ahead.
I just said that to somebody, I think yesterday. A house divided cannot stand. But that's really their in their goal to get more votes, they are destroying the country. And in fact, it's funny, Trudeau is not the Prime Minister of Canada anymore. But a number of years ago, I heard him on a talk show, and somebody had asked him a question, and he said, well, creating division works really well for getting votes in an election, but it's hard to fix afterwards. These are political tactics that are destroying the country. They really are. There is absolutely no way this should be a bipartisan issue. Everyone should be concerned about this. This is an emergency. This is every bit as an emergency as if, there was a flood covering the whole country. This is an emergency. They really have to look at it. And I mean, this is willful blindness. It is absolutely anybody who's got half a mind at all, and certainly politicians should be, getting all of the information. They can see very clearly what's happened. I mean, there's just no avoiding the fact that Islam is very violent and people are afraid of it. They are rightfully afraid of it. To call it Islamophobia is an insult. We've got, bookstores are being bombed and people are being killed and jihad attacks left, right, and center. Look at what happened to the Jews at Bondi Beach at the music festival. And, it's always the unarmed, helpless victim. It's guerrilla warfare. Islam has never been a nation state declaring war against a nation state. It never has been. It's always been guerrilla warfare and always going after the most vulnerable people who aren't prepared.
Elaine, the one thing that makes me rage the most, when in 2011, the Church of the Saints in Alexandria was bombed, and the blood and tissues was everywhere on the walls. And then somebody come and tell me, you are Islamophobic? Come on, like, is this a joke?
Ridiculous.
They
Like,
use this word to protect
Mhm.
themselves when they do the terrorist acts. They try to intimidate you for not to say the right thing about the crime or tell them loudly that they are terrorists. That's how they cover for their crimes, by accusing you that you are overreact or something, Islamophobic or something.
Go ahead, Elaine.
Well, I was going to tell you about one with Elmira Al-Gawabi again, when they had the in Germany, there was an attack in Magdeburg it was a Christmas festival, and it turned out that the person who did this was from Saudi Arabia, and of course he had been I don't know if you've seen them. I've certainly seen them. The Saudi school books, and they teach hatred towards the unbelievers and beating women, and all of the Saudi textbooks are straight up doctrine. Okay, so this is what he had been raised with. Now he had been born and raised there, and that is of course the indoctrination when he was young. Now he left there, and at times apparently he claimed he was an atheist. At one time he actually said he was a Christian or an ex-Muslim. So he had called himself a lot of different things, but we have to remember that he was brainwashed as a child with the typical Saudi Arabian doctrine. Well, so he drove this car into a Christmas market. This is 2023. And there were 5 people killed. There were hundreds of people who were injured. And Amir Al-Gawabi, the Islamophobia rep in Canada, called it an instance of Islamophobia. Can you imagine? They've just gone in and killed a bunch of Christians at a Christmas market, and probably some others as well, who enjoy celebrating Christmas. Christmas is welcoming to everyone. So you don't have to be a Christian to celebrate Christmas and go to a Christmas market. But who is he going to find there? He's not going to find Muslims there, because that is haram. Celebrating Christmas in any way is forbidden in Islam. And that is the market he drove his car into, killed and injured people. And our Islamophobia representative comes out and calls it Islamophobia. So what kind of, machinations in your mind? How have you contorted your mind to imagine that that is Islamophobia? But that is what she did. So it doesn't matter if a Christian event is attacked, it's Islamophobia. If a Muslim event is attacked, it's Islamophobia. To her, everything is Islamophobia.
Exactly. Afnan, would you like to say something? Or Divine?
Divine, she didn't talk, so I said I will let her speak.
Go ahead, Divine.
Okay, I just want to say a word of encouragement to Christians all over the world, not to be afraid. Do not retreat into silence. Do not bend to the demands of the age. Do not let fear write your future. Anchor yourself in the world. Root yourself in a faithful church. Strengthen your brothers and sisters. Teach your children what is true. Pray often. Speak boldly. Live with a joy that confuses the world. And when the moment of testing arrives, stand firm in the strength that God supplies. The same Christ who walked into the fire with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stand with you now. The same Christ who carried the early church through hostility carries you today. The same Christ who sustained believers in Iran, North Korea, and every hand placed on earth will sustain you. If the West turns openly against your faith, this is not the hour for fear. This is the hour for peacefulness. The world may outlaw your conviction, but it cannot overthrow your king. The nations may rage, but the tomb is still empty. The government may threaten, but Christ still reigns. Whatever the future brings, you can walk forward with a steady heart because the one who holds you is stronger than anything that opposes you. I need everyone to listen to this message, and I hope will strengthen you not to have fear in your heart for all Christian around the world, not just in the West. It's everywhere. Persecution against Christian is everywhere because the devil knows that his end is soon, is very near. So
Amen. Amen. I was thinking, Elaine, about something. I was thinking about like some solutions for Europe, like beside the elections, as we talked about, and strengthening Christianity because that's the what holds Europe together. But I found like unlike America, Europe does not have a Second Amendment to guarantee citizens the right to defend themselves if
Mhm.
violence erupts. In the United States, people still have the means to protect their homes and families. In
Mhm.
much Europe, however, politicians have stripped ordinary citizens of what many consider their most basic rights, the
Mhm.
right to self-defense. As a result, the law abiding families are left exposed and dependent on government that often fail to protect them. Look what happened after October 7th in Israel. Israeli men and women took to the streets armed because their nation understands the seriousness of the threat it faces. That they do not ignore danger or pretend it does not exist. They respond to it. It is time for Europe to recognize the reality of its own security challenges. Citizens should not be left defenseless while threats grow around them. A society that values its safety must ensure that law abiding people have the means to protect themselves against violence. And that's how we won Revolutionary War. This is how
Exactly.
we get our own land, and we become independent from Great Britain. No force could stand against us if the people can able to defend them. Are you with that or against that? Because a lot of
Oh,
people.
100%. 100%. I think everybody should have a Second Amendment. You know,
Yeah,
this isn't the right of the state to say whether or not you can defend yourself. And they think does the state think it is God? I mean, really, in Canada, our government has said you have no right to self-defense. This is ludicrous. Have they checked with God about that? Of course, people have a right to defend themselves. My goodness, that is just ridiculous. But as you say, the United States was born of revolution, and they knew full well they needed to defend themselves against government. And Canada was not born that way. But as soon as the state makes your country unsafe and then wants to take away your guns, you need to worry about tyranny. We've all seen what's just happened in Iran. My goodness, they've got mounted machine guns mowing down their own people. So no, the people need to be able to defend themselves. Of course they do. Everyone needs to be able to defend themselves. An animal will defend itself. Anything, it's natural, of course. So, but aside from that, you were speaking about solutions. What is needed in the long term is government reform, and no one has proposed anything realistic yet. When they come out and say, oh, well, we'll have a no Sharia bill, there is no way that is going to work because they don't recognize it. They can't regulate it. They'll spend their life in court, and while they're in court, the country will become Islamic. Okay, it's just that is not going. What needs to happen is a recognition of the fact that Islam is inconsistent with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, charters, and constitutions. That's it. It has to be acknowledged. People have to be educated. That is the only way to do it. People need to push for legislative reform that is enduring, that will be there 30 years from now when the people have forgotten what's happening right now. This is something that comes up repeatedly. We've had 14 centuries now of Islam slowly but surely advancing so that now it's right on the doorstep. And people are still, thinking, oh, well, this is the same world it was 100 years ago. It's not. And, you know, the founders could not have anticipated what was going to happen, that one day people would imagine that somehow Islam was like every other belief system. You know, that's impossible. So they need to take that extra step now. And this is nothing against people. It is against doctrine. And it you know, it's not even against doctrine so much as it is for human rights. We need to champion human rights. We have to be, you know, guardians of the future of children, that they aren't persecuted, that they can live freely and enjoy the kind of life I was able to enjoy in a free country, in a tolerant country that is becoming less tolerant by the day, simply because it is accepting Islamic demands and silencing free speech out of fear. You know, it needs to be courageous, and it needs to take that step and say, okay, we're going to have reform. And anything that is not consistent with human rights, I don't care. In France, it's not religion that they look at, although in France and in Italy as well, I believe, Islam was never actually recognized as a religion. So it's not on their original list of what is a religion. Nevertheless, they're being given privileges under the status of organizations. Whatever it is, if it's not consistent with your charters, constitutions, you mustn't facilitate it. You mustn't give it schools. You mustn't give it money. You mustn't give it charitable status. And you must educate the public as to the truth that it is not consistent, because so much of the public thinks it is consistent when it's not. We're the only ones here. Afnan, are you still there? Am I talking to myself?
Yeah, I'm messaging them. I think they're having a problem. I said, where are you? Jadadia, she's asking them to edit her again. I'm trying to... But
we've been talking quite a long time now, actually. Maybe we should wrap it up pretty soon.
Oh, yeah, we have like 15 minutes left or something like that.
There's only you and me, and I can only talk so long.
Oh, yeah. Here we go. I see they are here.
Here we are.
Yeah.
That's
a lot of talking, girls. I'm kind of worn out. Like you guys need to take over.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I like exactly, Elaine. Like I was thinking about that. I was thinking, what if Muslims try to attack our neighborhood? And our neighborhood, like I live in the South in the U.S., so we don't mess around. Like we have, I have a room full of guns. AR-50, everything, like, you know what I mean? And everyone, like they try to come here and like they will not be happy, you know? That's how it's gonna be here in the South. So I was thinking about that, like but in Europe it's completely different, and I believe in Canada too. Is it am I correct?
The government wants to take guns. It's always trying to take guns, but my goodness, we live in the wilderness here. Most of this country is pure wilderness. We have bear wandering through our yard on a regular basis, and it's certainly not the bear that I'm afraid of anymore. The country is becoming less and less safe. So, you know, I mean, Canada has I'll tell you, my mother had trophies for shooting, several.
Oh, wow.
My mother was a real marksman. She taught all my brothers to hunt. And when she wouldn't teach me, she wanted me in skirts. But I would come in the house and smell blood, and I would know my mother had been hunting again. And she would she would generally hang the deer, but they have to hang, they take the antlers off, the blood drains, and then they butcher it. And her father was a butcher, and she would butcher the deer right on our kitchen table. So all of my brothers know how to hunt. All of their kids know how to hunt. One of my nieces is a fantastic markswoman and hunter, just like my mother was. But the guns sat in the bedroom, okay? Mm-hmm. There were two, at least two. There was the 22 and a 30, I think, okay, that sat in the corner of the bedroom. And they were not loaded, of course, but and when I was a little girl, there were two things that I was taught that you never forget. You don't walk behind a truck, okay, because they can't see you. And you don't ever point a gun at someone unless you mean to use it. You never, I go crazy when I see people, even toys, point them at people. Like, don't do that, okay?
Exactly.
But the guns were always empty, and they sat in the corner of the bedroom, and they just leaned against the door jamb, and then the ammunition was somewhere else. It was in my mother's underwear drawer. So, you know, everyone in our family is very familiar with guns, very comfortable with guns. We're not the people that they need to worry about. We never have been, of course not. You
And
know,
we're very careful with guns too. Like you said, you're not
absolutely.
pointing your gun. Like even my husband teach me how to point my gun, how to hold my gun. If I'm not ready to shoot, my gun is down, the pointer is down, and like this is how people who train to carry gun, they are very careful. They know what they're doing.
But
They're not.
look, Jadadia, I want to explain something. I think it's wiser for Canada to prevent it because they have a huge number of Muslims, and if they keep allow it, they already had multi attacks happening there. So it's more dangerous them to allow guns than making it
Well,
illegal.
yeah, but drugs as well. This country has completely gone downhill. It's a failed state at this point. I'm sorry to
Wow.
say, but this country in the last 15 years has completely lost its way and become extremely unsafe. The mass migration here has been has exceeded the migration that they've had in the US by a long shot. So, and you've got, you know, all of these cultures who now can't find housing. There's not enough medical, there's no jobs, welfare. This country is a mess, and the drugs, terrible. We are actually now considered to be exporting terror attacks from this country. We're export. This is
from-
not. Well, I'm
Since
sorry, but that's a fact.
Frodo, right?
Yeah.
Since Frodo was there, right? The evil guy.
Yeah, the Trudeau guy, like one of the time, like there was a church attack, I believe, in Canada. I cannot remember the incident exactly, but he came out and said that's very bad, and like he disagreed with it, and then he said, "But I understand why
Yes.
it happened."
He says, but I understand. What is wrong with him? That's
Exactly.
insane.
He's exactly like Obama
Yeah,
started
I
like
think
the
we all
evil thing.
remember.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's like the opposite. Like he's agreeing with it, and then disagree with it. It's like I'm this mixed messages is like how you condemn it, and then you say I understand it. I don't
And
get
then
it.
the latest prime minister that they have, his name's Mark Carney. He came out very clearly and said that Muslim values are Canadian values.
Wow.
Oh wow.
Oh wow. Instead of like saying like Muslim country, Muslim values should be
Well, there's two things wrong with that. Muslims are people, all right. So what he should have said is Islamic values, because every Muslim's going to be a little different, all right, but they're still supposed to follow Islam. So what he's really talking about is Islamic values are Canadian values, because he didn't say Muslims' values are like Canadian individuals. He's talking about the country, all right? So he can't speak for the country. If he's going to speak for the whole country, then he needs to speak about Islam, not Muslims, all right?
Yeah.
And but that either way, you know, it's like, no, it's not acceptable to say the Canadian values are Islamic values, because they're not at all, not even a little bit.
Yeah,
No.
they should conform to the Canadian values, not the opposite.
Exactly. What
Yes,
is
but
this?
he's
Is supposed to be
stupid,
our
like
prime
other
minister?
people in other countries. They
Exactly.
all have they all share the same stupidity, either
Yeah.
in the United Kingdom,
Yeah.
Canada,
Yeah.
France now.
Yeah.
Like all
They also teach our kids in schools as if it's like blaming all the entirely like slavery entirely on white Christianity, as if it's slavery was invented in Europe. That's simply false. Slavery existed in almost every civilization in the world long before
Including
transatlantic.
Native Canadians. Okay, including the Haida were very well known for taking slaves. They used to raid other tribes and take slaves all the time. So yeah, slavery certainly has gone through history, but Islam's the only one that has been doing it for 14 centuries.
Like the thing is not just like that. Like the transatlantic slave trade there was involved by, like, the Muslims were involved in
That's
it.
right.
And
Yeah.
like,
Mhm.
they
They
conveniently
were selling them. Yeah.
exactly, they ignored the fact that Muslim traders were major players in the slave markets, and that many Africans were captured and sold by other Africans and by Muslim merchants before being transported to Western traders.
But Europeans captured as well, millions of Europeans and Slavs.
Exactly, exactly. That part of history is often left out.
They never talk about it.
Exactly. And what is rarely acknowledged is this, that it was predominantly Christian nations, especially Britain and later the Western powers, that
That's
led
dropped
the
it.
global abolition movement.
Yeah.
It was Christians who fought politically, socially, and even militarily, to end the slave trade. You know,
Yes,
the
the
Civil
UK
War.
should be teaching about people like Wilberforce, who was so, against slavery. And here, yet what happens in the United States? Okay, they had the Nation of Islam group that got quite strong, I believe, in the 1930s, and people thinking, oh, because they're, and that's the thing they go on. Oh, well, you're black or you're a minority, therefore you should be a Muslim because you're oppressed like us. I mean, it's all fabricated. But here we had Cassius Clay, who was a famous fighter, and he had been named after an abolitionist, Cassius Clay, a famous abolitionist, and he was convinced that no, this was his slave name, and instead he adopted the name Muhammad Ali, both of whom owned slaves, traded slaves, captured slaves, and he named himself after them. And this is,
God.
I mean, this is because of poor education.
They still practice that in some Muslim countries. Mauritania, I think.
Oh,
and
yes.
Saudi Arabia,
Libya, they've got, oh, yes.
People.
And all sorts of Egyptian women and Hindu are also kidnapped and sold in Saudi Arabia. There have not been any prosecutions in the Islamic states for slavery. They have now had prosecutions in Germany, in Holland, and I believe the UK. There's been 3 European prosecutions for Muslims holding slaves in European countries, let alone in Islamic countries, and there's no prosecutions there.
And they also leave out
and we have to end. And we have to end.
Oh, okay. Just one thing.
Yeah,
just let me say this. Just let me say this. They forget to mention that thousands of the white Christians are the ones who sacrificed actually themselves, sacrificed their lives to abolish slavery. And of course, like, you cannot tell half of the story and call it the truth. It's the complete lie, and that's what they do. They lie to our people, our children. Grow a new generation. They did grow a new generation, hate Christianity and attack Christianity, and that's why they are holding hands with the Muslims today, because of the fake history. That's right. And demonizing Christianity.
Yeah, and it's getting worse all the time. They've got the European Quran project underway right now, rewriting European history. They've already done that with Spain, as if, Islam was so wonderful when it wasn't at all. It's wrong. Money's got a lot to do with it. Straight up avarice and ambition.
Go ahead, Divine, close.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody. First, I want to thank Elaine for being with us, and she always amazes us with the knowledge that she has. And I want to thank everybody who's watching us and the ABN team. Thank you, everybody, and see you the next time.
Thank you for having me. Lovely to see you all. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for being with us. Love you too. Take care, and everybody.